there. It's Levels Plus Weekly time, and this episode has had such a difficult time existing. I tell you what, I recorded an entire episode worth of content, but I couldn't be heard. I don't know if this webcam is like the microphone just isn't picking up as well, or if I've just always not been paying attention to this, but like when I was starting to edit this week's episode, I was like, dude, there's no way if I put any sort of music on here, anyone's going to hear me, and it's hard enough to be heard anyway. So went ahead and decided to just start over. So this is going to be completely live. I don't really want to just sit and edit this entire thing. The downside to that is by being in this room and being where I'm situated, I can't see my laptop screen. So I am just going to have to do my best to make things work. As you all know, because you've heard it, my laptop continues to be loud. And I don't have the means as of right now to buy all the things that I need to make this a better program. I'm hoping maybe if I can control myself a bit over the summer and take some attention off of buying carts for a bit, or at least a lot of carts, just focusing on the ones that I really need, and trying to keep orders small, that I can get a new desktop which won't make any noise. I can get a better webcam and maybe even a microphone and pay that off over time as a monthly payment type of thing. So that's kind of where technical issues are with this show. But ultimately, I want this to be fun. So I'm trying, I seriously had thoughts of just putting this week's episode aside once I was listening to the audio, going, I don't want to do it, but I like doing this, and I'm tired of letting the tech dictate how I'm doing it. So, like I said, I'm going to try to keep edits on this to a minimum. I've got new stuff for Femtendo, which is the new name of my book. I don't know if you saw the earlier video I put out on Monday about the name change, but if you didn't, I'll put a link here and you can check that out. Explains what's going on. I'm also got a huge pile of art, which I'll ooh, look at that. It's Delton from a game project you've never heard of. I think that's what all this stuff on the top is. And then hey, it's a So This Webcomic art. I've got a whole bunch of art here for my art book that I'm going to photograph with my Nikon digital SLR after this video is done. So that's exciting. I don't know if there's any interest in me talking about the art book here on Levels Plus Weekly, but I might when it gets a little bit further along. I also get the extra side benefit that you don't of watching Flavia roll around in the beam of sun that's on the floor in here, and she's being absolutely adorable. So I've got a couple news stories as well that I want to go over. Since I can't see them, I've got my phone here. So let me pull those up real quick. So I've spent a lot of time on the show talking about Sony closing down the PlayStation 3, PSP, and PS Vita stores this summer. Well, I wasn't the only one. There's been a lot of people taking Sony to task on this and putting up buy this now before it disappears videos. And apparently Sony noticed that people were a little upset at them, and they decided to reverse the PS3 and the PS Vita store closures. That's no longer happening, so yay, kinda. The PSP store is still going to shut down in July, so if you have a PSP and you want to get stuff that's PSP exclusive, you need to do that still, but for an indeterminate time, because Sony did not say how long this will stay open, the PlayStation 3 and the PS Vita stores will not disappear. This is a good thing, but this needs to be taken by Jim Ryan, who wrote the post, which is delightfully ironic considering he's the one who has publicly said no one wants those old games. Proving you wrong there, Jim. I'm gonna take a smug drink of water. Jim, in his post, says that upon further reflection, however, it's clear that we made the wrong decision. So today, I'm happy to say that we will be keeping the PlayStation Store operational for PS3 and PS Vita devices. They go on to say that when we initially came to the decision, it was born out of a number of factors, including commerce, support challenges for older devices, and the ability for us to focus more of our resources on newer devices where the majority of our players are playing on. We see now that many of you are incredibly passionate about being able to continue purchasing classic games on PS3 and PS Vita for a foreseeable future, so I'm glad we were able to find a solution to continue operations. So, ultimately, here's what I think. This is what I think, is that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo all go through moments of ego when they are in the lead. I can say that Microsoft took the lead with the Xbox 360, and they paid for it dearly with the Xbox One. And then Nintendo got really confident with the Wii and the DS success, and they paid for it with the Wii U and the 3DS, especially the Wii U. Sony has probably gone through more of these mood swings than anyone else. And they are in the middle of an ego high right now. Because the PlayStation 4 soundly beat the Xbox One. So going into the PS5, they are doing a lot of very questionable things, like Japan studios shutting down, more or less. They have bled a lot of their Japanese development talent to other studios. On top of that, they've decided, of all things, to remake The Last of Us on the PS5 when there's a remaster of the PS3 game already there. That didn't come out even barely 10 years ago, and yet here we are. Sony's prioritizing that over a lot of other stuff. And then there's the CMOD battery thing with the PS3, PS4, and PS5, which are basically time bombs that could basically eliminate all of your digital content, and in the case of the PS4, your physical content as well. So they're not having a great time, and this just came out in the middle of a bad publicity run for them, and it wasn't good. It did not look good at all. And I'm glad that they've decided to reverse course a bit, but what they need to do is they need to make the shopping experience better on the PS3 and the PS Vita, because those storefronts are awful on the consoles. The PS3 one is so chuggy and unstable. I usually get kicked out of that store at least once every time I sign into it, and I hate going into the PS store. I said this when I was talking about buying stuff off of it. I hate it. It's so clunky. Along with that, getting their PS1, PS2, PS3, PSP, PS Vita titles onto the PS5, because people will buy them. I don't care if Jim Ryan thinks that we only want new stuff, because he's been proven wrong with this. And that's what's so delicious about him having to write that post. He's been proven wrong. Now they need to realize how wrong can convert into a lesson, and then act on it and make these games available on the PS5. That's a simple thing that they could do. I know it costs money. I know it will take people away from doing other stuff. But honestly, if you do this, you will make a lot of people happy. So that's my spiel on the PS Store. I'm gonna take a non-smug drink of water. And I'm going to talk about one other thing that's kind of on my nerves. And then we'll talk about a really good thing. And then we'll cat intermission our way into the Femtendo items. So, the other thing that's bothered me this week in terms of news is I detest retailer exclusivity on things. It drives me up the wall. And it really bothers me when it's GameStop, because I hate supporting GameStop in any way, shape, or form. So imagine my disappointment in learning that Capcom has decided to make Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruins Collector's Edition a GameStop exclusive alongside the amiibo. And you will understand that I am not a happy camper about that decision. It's just really irksome to me that this is happening. It's not like Monster Hunter Rises Collector's Edition didn't sell out at Best Buy pretty quick. It did. I watched it. I had one. I chose not to keep it. And I watched it immediately get swallowed up. But I just don't like retailer exclusivity when it comes to games. Especially now that we've only really got a few major channels to do it. We've got Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, Target, and GameStop. Those are the big five in terms of United States video game buying places. That's not to say you can't find them elsewhere, and there's not a bevy of independent game shops out there, because there sure are. But ultimately, just doing this type of thing drives me up the wall. It really does, because I don't like GameStop at all. The only thing I have bought at GameStop in the last 5 years is that Joanna Dark Totaku figure, because that was the only way to get it. I just don't like having to deal with GameStop. I've had horrible experiences with them constantly. They basically absorbed FuncoLand and EB Games, and I liked FuncoLand and I was okay with EB Games, but they just ate them up and completely demolished their structure. I have several games still in my collection from FuncoLand. My Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo came from there. For instance, my King of Fighters Evolution for the Dreamcast came from there. There's just so much that GameStop has destroyed for me that I don't like supporting them. They're a terrible company, and Capcom just giving the Monster Hunter stuff is making me increasingly disinterested in exploring the series. I am interested in Stories too, but I would have been more interested in like the collector's edition being at Best Buy. I might have actually gone for it, even though July is not a great month for reasons I have just stated earlier. Buying a new desktop, probably. I would have considered it though, but now I'm not. It's not even on the menu. So I just want to get that off my chest, that really bugs me. But let's end this news section on a positive note. And it also relates to Capcom, which is why Phoenix is hanging out over here on top of my book. And that's because the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles was announced for Switch, PS4, and PC. and it's actually getting a physical release on Switch. I can't believe it. There hasn't been a physical release for an Ace Attorney game in the main series since Apollo Justice. And the last one that was well, that's not one. Let me think. It was either Apollo Justice or Miles Edgeworth Ace Attorney's Investigations. It was one or the other. It might have been Investigations, which is still a long time ago. Nintendo released Phoenix Wright versus Professor Layton. So that is the most recent physical release of a Phoenix Wright game, but I don't really consider that in the main storyline. I think it's a side story thing. So in terms of Capcom themselves releasing it, it was probably Ace Attorney Investigations. Long ago, and we didn't even get the sequel to that. All Phoenix Wright games since that have been localized have just been on the eShop for the 3DS. And Ace Attorney Trilogy never got a physical release here. So this is exciting. I'm going to get it. I've already decided that will be something that I want to support because I love the Ace Attorney games. Apollo Justice is still on my list. Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations was on my list. I think it just recently fell off. But I enjoy the 4 mainline games a ton. And maybe someday I'll get into 5 and 6. But honestly, I really like Shu Takami's involvement with the series. And he stopped after Apollo to focus on the Great Ace Attorney. Just awesome news. And it would be great if we got an investigations package and they got 2 localized as well. And we got 4, 5, and 6 put into a trilogy, which I believe was in the documents that shall not be named because they were stolen and ransomed by jerks. So, good news on Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Really happy that that's coming, and I am ecstatic it's coming in a physical edition. I wish that Capcom went that extra little step of localizing the full thing. So you would get a deluxe pack with Great Ace Attorney Chronicles and Ace Attorney Trilogy in one as a physical. They're doing that in Japan, but they're not doing it here. You can get it digitally though. So if you didn't get Ace Attorney Trilogy yet, that's a great thing. But if you did, I would have probably gone forward if they actually released it physically, because I wouldn't have minded getting those physically. But anyway, that is all of the news that I have to report this week. Most of it's positive. Sony reversing course is good. They need to take it further. And Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is wonderful. I just feel like Monster Hunter Stories 2 being a GameStop only thing is just really annoying. The amiibo being there already was annoying. It's and then they did it with Rise too. It just gets on my nerves. So, cat intermission time. They're both in here right now. They both really are interested in the sleeping bag that's covering the laptop, which is kind of annoying because I don't want them to accidentally abort my video. But we'll take a little break and then we'll run through all the cool stuff I got. All right, it looks like I didn't leave because I didn't. Like I said, I'm keeping edits on this to a minimum because I don't want to have to fight with production problems anymore this week. So let's get into all of the cool stuff that I bought for Nintendo. I'm gonna go ahead and cover the stuff that's not for the book. I ordered 3 things that are a little bit harder to get at a good price here in the United States. And I plan to region unlock my Super Nintendo and my N64 to play these. But I got the N64 Japanese version of Mischief Makers, which is really cool. But this is not the expensive one. Like, I was looking at a North American cart for like $35, but I paid for like $10 for this. So I've heard wonderful things about Mischief Makers, and I don't think that the language difference is going to hurt my enjoyment of it. Then I also got 2 Super Famicom games. So I got Soul Blader, which was localized here as Soul Blazer. I enjoyed what I have played of this so far on the Super Nintendo, but it's not mine. A foreign friend has lent me it for like 5 years, and I feel really bad about it. So I'm keeping an eye out for Illusion of Gaia, so I can add that as well. But Soul Blazer runs a lot more here. I want to say that is probably in the 80 to 120 range to buy a bear cart here. That was under $10. In fact, I want to say that was under $5. And then Terranigma never got released in North America, but it did in Europe. Which is odd, and because people want to play this in English, the PAL version goes for a lot of money. I want to say it's not quite Earthbound levels, but I want to say like in the 100 to 200 range probably, and this was under 20 bucks. So I got those for myself. The rest, however, are for the book, and we'll go ahead and start with the this system stuff. And the first one here is Dead Zone. And again, I can't see what my laptop is showing, so I'm hoping that when I hold these up like this, you can see them okay. I apologize if they are not turning out very well. Dead Zone is a graphic adventure game that Sunsoft did in 1986. So this is going in the first book. And this particular one is complete with the manual and everything. Next is Kiki Kakai. I don't remember the full subtitle. I'll put it here. This is not a port of the arcade game, but a sequel that would eventually spawn the Pocky and Rocky series that we know it as on the Super Nintendo. This was the most expensive one in this order. This started at like $100, and by the time I bought it, it actually had gotten down to about 40. But this one's also complete with the manual. And then the last system game I got is a name that I don't know how to pronounce because it's very long. But this is the first of a series of games. There was 3 released on the Famicom, so we'll be coming back to this series more than likely over the course of future books. But this is also going into the second book. I think that this was 87, and I just decided to have it be 1983 to 1986 for book 1, and then 1987 is going to be its own book. It's going to make it a lot cleaner that way. So I'm going to go ahead and move that to book 2. But this one is also complete with the manual, and the manual looks very thick. But we got our first experience overseas with this series on the DS when they localized it as the Jake Hunter series. Alright, and then I have a boxed Famicom game. My very first one, and you're not going to believe which one it is, because I can't believe it. Every time I look at it, I have to laugh. It is this. And you're like, what is that? Well, it's a family trainer game that Bandai made. We actually got a localized version of this known as Street Cop. And I think in Japan it's like Mad Hatter Street Cop. But this is complete in the box with everything. So there's the cart, and there's the manual. I was looking at the back because there was advertisements for other games in the series. And if my brain's correct, this is the very last one of these that Bandai did. And one of 3 that I think got localized. This is here because of, I forget her name. I think it's like B. Betty or BB Betty. B. Betty. Who's on the cover and is prominent enough to be a major antagonist. So that's the dealio there. I also got 2 deluxe size carts. So later on the Famicom, Nintendo loosened up on their cartridge stuff. So you could put additional stuff into your games to make them beefier, to help with music, help with space, so you can have more stuff. So I got 2 of these this time, and these will be for future books, like 90, 91 onward. So the first one is Just Breed, which is an incredibly awkward name to give to a game. But this is an Enix RPG. I don't know a whole lot about it. It wasn't localized for America at all. But there is a woman prominently on the cover, and I did a little bit of research, and she's a playable character, so we'll be covering that down the road. And then I got one of the Ganbare Goemon games. This is Gaiden 2. Gaiden 1 introduces Yae, who is a mainstay in the series. She doesn't appear in this one, but other women do as playable characters. So I imagine, since this is in a big fancy cart like that, that it's going to have this Konami sound chip bonuses. So now we're just into regular old Famicom carts, but there's some good ones in here. And I got 3 that are for the first book, and a couple for the next book, and a bunch looking ahead. So the first one is what we know as Ninja Gaiden, because of Irene is a prominent NPC in that game. This is Suguro Quest. I think that's how it's pronounced. This was never localized. This is a Technos RPG board game, if I remember right. And there's an elf character who's female that you can play as well as the fairy in the front there with the dice. Not really sure much on that game, but it does have women in it. This next one is Princess Tomato and the Salad Kingdom. Now, this is originally a PC port, but when they made it into a Famicom game, it did get changed around quite a bit from that game, and it did get localized. It's one of the few graphic adventures that did get localized for North American audiences. So I decided to go ahead and pick it up. There will be a few women to talk about in here, and it's an interesting game, no doubt. Next up on the docket is Zyx. I don't know how to pronounce this, even in English. This actually did get localized into English, which just sometimes, like, when they localize things, it's like, you didn't bother to change the name. But there is a woman on the cover that I believe is a princess that you have to rescue, and that's why it's here. We've got a few more Konami games. So here is YY World 2. Unlike the first game, Konami Lady is not as prominent, but she's still in it. And because of that, I decided to get this game because they basically changed all the playable characters to be male in this one. And it's also decidedly unlicensed, unlike the first YY World, which had Goonies and King Kong representation in it. This is Konamic Sports in Seoul, which was localized here as Track and Field 2. There's at least 2 sports, I believe, that have women participants. So that'll be for the sports section in Book 2. This is Mario Open Golf. This is the sole Nintendo game in this pile. This is here because Daisy is a caddy, so it's her introduction into the NES. It's the only one that she was in. Peach is also in here as Mario's caddy. And it was localized as NES Open Tournament Golf. Next up is Metaphyte, which was localized into Blaster Master in one of the most interesting cases of localization on the NES, which I have an article on, so you can check that out. But I won't be covering Blaster Master in the series because there's no women in Blaster Master. But in Metaphyte, there is Jennifer. So we'll be covering this, but not Blaster Master, because Eve is only in the book. Here's a Book 2 item. This is Valis, the Phantasm Soldier. There's a lot of women in this game, and it came out on the Famicom, so we're covering it. Next, which is also a Book 2 item, this, I don't remember the Japanese name for it, but in English, it was localized as Dusty Diamonds All-Star Softball. And this is actually going to be an interesting Culture Clash article as well, because you can't probably see super well because the camera is probably not focusing, but there's a bunch of animals appearing on the cover here, and when it was localized, all of the sprite work was changed to make them human. So, but there's women in both games, so we'll be covering that. So the last 3 are actual content for Book 1. And these are the 2 of the 5 Ninja Jajamaru games that came out through Jalico. So this first one and the second one both have Princess Sakura as a damsel in distress, and she's actually on the box for both. Although, yeah, she's really hard to see in the second box, but she's here. There's also enemies that are women in probably both games that are yokai. But in game 3 and 5, Princess Sakura was made a playable character. So she's actually kind of an interesting one. I initially did not include that series because I thought that the 2 games here were ports of arcade games. Because originally they UPL released Ninja Kid for arcades, which were ported to the Famicom by UPL. Jalico somehow took the idea and ran with it on their own and released these as Famicom exclusive games. So that was important to learn. So now they're going to be in Book 1. And then last but not least in this purchase is City Connection, which is an arcade port, and is going to also be an interesting Culture Clash article because the main character in the arcade game and the Famicom game, Clarice, who is a woman, was localized into a man in the North American release. Clarice is the first human Player 1 protagonist playable character on the Famicom. Because while Bubbles is the first playable female character that is Player 1, she's not human. And Nana, while she is human, is Player 2. So Clarice, even though it's an arcade game, is the first. So she gets those amazing dibs and beats Valkyrie by a good year. So pretty cool. That's all of the games. So we are officially done with LVLS Plus Weekly this week. I'm really excited to have all these. I gotta be honest with you, I've got one more update to make to Nintendo's list of 1983 to 1986 characters, which is Mapiko from Mappyland. I originally had her written off because I thought Mappyland was an arcade game, but it's a Famicom exclusive game. And so I feel like she's prominent enough, she's on the cover for both the NES and Famicom versions of the game, that she should probably be upgraded to a full article. So that should be the last one that I do in terms of promoting those minor characters up. And I've got 2 games for book 1 currently sitting in my cart, with one for book 2 in there as well. And I'm kind of holding off because I'm hoping I can maybe get Layla. So I don't have much left to buy. I have Mappyland, I have Space Hunter, I have Layla, and then I have Shisho no Dragon, I think is what it's called. And I think that's it. And I'm gonna wrap this up because the neighbors have just started their leaf blower next door. So that's probably being picked up. That's what I have left for book 1. So at the moment, I might just pull the trigger next week and just get those 2, because then that's 2 of 4 and I only have 2 left, and just throw a few other things until the shipping gets up that are cheap. Just try to make the shipping most cost effective as possible. But that's kind of the situation right now, is just waiting for the last few items. I have bought everything that I can through my source for these. So I just have to wait for new stuff to roll in. And thankfully they put up Famicom stuff twice a week, typically. But just kind of waiting and hoping. Thank you for watching. I hope that this kind of live format with relatively minor edits to remove cat interruptions and really awkward pauses worked out, and I'm being heard okay, and that this was still entertaining. I'm trying not to be impatient about this. I want this to be fun. So thank you for sticking it out with me. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next week.